I never thought suburban life would turn into a battlefield. When I moved into Clear Ridge Estates, I pictured weekend barbecues, polite waves, and quiet evenings under string lights. For a while, that's exactly what it was: peaceful, predictable, and almost boring. Then the HOA got a new president. Her name was Karen Lewis, and she arrived with a smile that could curdle milk and a Tesla that gleamed like a trophy. At first, I admired her confidence. She spoke about eco-living and community progress at every meeting, sprinkling buzzwords like solar, sustainability, and smart energy. She seemed like the kind of person who'd measure her virtue in carbon credits. I had no reason to suspect that behind those perfect speeches was a woman quietly stealing electricity from her neighbors, specifically from me. It started subtly: a higher utility bill, a faint hum at night, and a new cable stretching behind her garage that hadn't been there before. Still, I told myself I was imagining things. You don't accuse your HOA president of theft over a flickering porch light. But that uneasy feeling stuck, buzzing in the back of my mind like a short circuit waiting to spark. It all started with my electric bill. Normally, my usage hovered around the same range every month. But one day, I opened the envelope and blinked twice. It was nearly double. I checked the meter, ran through possible reasons, even replaced the air filters in case something was overworking. Nothing changed. Then my neighbor Tom mentioned he noticed his own bill creeping up too. Maybe the rates went up, he said. But when we checked online, they hadn't. That's when curiosity turned to suspicion. A few nights later, I stepped outside for some air and heard a faint humming, soft, steady, and electrical. It was coming from behind my fence, near the line that separated my property from Karen's. I followed the sound with my flashlight and froze. A thin conduit, recently buried but not very well, snaked from my meter box under the fence and into her yard. My heart started pounding. No way, I thought. She wouldn't actually. But the next morning, when I noticed her Tesla plugged in and fully charged before sunrise, that uneasy suspicion hardened into certainty. She wasn't just running a community. She was running a personal power plant, using my electricity. I decided to handle it calmly. The next evening, I went to the HOA meeting. Karen was there, running things like a queen at her throne, clipboard in hand, pearls shining, voice dripping with authority. When the open floor started, I raised my hand. "I've noticed unusual wiring between our properties," I said. "Could someone explain if the HOA installed new electrical connections recently?" Karen's smile didn't falter, but her eyes narrowed for just a second. "Electrical connections?" she repeated, feigning confusion. "Oh, you mean the community grid monitoring lines?" "Yes, we've been modernizing for sustainability." "Nothing to worry about." The room nodded approvingly, and I felt the heat rise in my chest. Modernizing. I'd seen the conduit. There was nothing official about it. After the meeting, I caught her in the parking lot. "I know about the line, Karen," I said quietly. Her smile turned to stone. "Careful, neighbor," she said sweetly. "Accusing your HOA president of something like that could cause problems for you." It was the kind of threat disguised as advice. I didn't respond. I just looked her straight in the eye and said, "Then I guess I'll need to check my power source." She walked away, her heels clicking like gunfire. If Karen wanted to play games, I was going to play smarter. The next day, I called my friend Layla, a local reporter who'd done stories on housing scams. She agreed to help. We began documenting everything: photographs of the conduit, timestamps of the Tesla charging, screenshots of my power bills. Then I contacted the electric company. They sent out an inspector, a gray-haired man named Dale, who'd clearly seen it all. He took one look at the setup and frowned. "This connection wasn't made by us," he said, crouching to examine the line. "It's illegal. Dangerous, too. Whoever did this could have caused a fire." He photographed everything, tagged the meter, and promised a full report. 2 days later, I got a call from him. "You were right. Someone tampered with your system. We're escalating this to our fraud department." Layla suggested we go one step further. Using her contacts, she accessed the HOA's recent maintenance expenses. There was no record of any electrical upgrades. The community sustainability program Karen bragged about didn't exist. That's when it hit me: she wasn't just stealing power. She was probably using HOA funds to cover it up, charging residents for fake energy improvements while plugging her luxury car into my meter. The proof was mounting. But evidence alone wouldn't teach her the lesson she needed. I wanted her to feel the consequence. Every problem has a source. And sometimes the best revenge starts there. When Dale's team disconnected the illegal line, I noticed something interesting. The conduit wasn't just stealing from my meter. It was tied into an old junction box that supplied power to the HOA's decorative street lights and fountain pumps. That gave me an idea. With Layla's help, I got in touch with a certified electrician and the local energy compliance officer. Together, we installed a surge protection and smart monitoring system, completely legal, fully documented. What Karen didn't know was that the system would immediately flag and isolate any unauthorized load spikes. 3 nights later, I saw it happen. Her Tesla plugged in. My monitor pinged red. I smiled. Within seconds, the system shut down her illegal connection automatically. No fire, no danger, just a perfect circuit cut. The next morning, she stormed down my driveway, her face red as her car's brake lights. "My Tesla won't charge," she yelled. "Maybe you should call a licensed electrician," I said calmly. "Could be a wiring issue." She glared at me like she knew, but couldn't prove it. Later that week, the utility report went public. Unauthorized use, electrical theft, HOA fraud investigation pending. The entire neighborhood started whispering. Karen's spotless image was short-circuiting fast. The fallout spread quicker than a blackout. The HOA board called an emergency meeting. Neighbors showed up angry, waving power bills and screenshots of Karen's emails about eco upgrades. For once, she didn't smile. When the utility report was presented, you could feel the air shift. There it was, proof that she'd spliced into private meters to power her Tesla and blamed it on a community project. She tried to spin it. "It's all a misunderstanding," she said. "The wiring was temporary, and the data has been taken out of context." But nobody bought it. One homeowner shouted, "Then why were you the only one charging at 3 a.m.? Karen's composure cracked. She blamed her electrician, then the previous board, then the inspector. By the time she finished, her credibility was gone. The HOA voted to suspend her indefinitely pending investigation. She stormed out, muttering about defamation and jealousy. But the rail kicker came later that week when her Tesla's charging port malfunctioned completely. The dealership's inspection found exposure to unstable power conditions, the direct result of her illegal setup. Karma didn't need my help. The damage was self-inflicted. Layla released her documentary a week later, Power Trip, How a Neighborhood President Stole from Her Community. It had everything: footage of the illegal line, interviews with neighbors, the inspection report, and even Karen's meltdown at the meeting. The story went viral locally. The HOA became infamous overnight, and the city launched a full audit. Karen's green image was shredded. Her Tesla sat useless in her driveway, like a monument to her own arrogance. When investigators uncovered that she'd used HOA funds to reimburse herself for electrical work that never happened, it turned into a criminal case. Fraud, theft of services, misuse of community funds. Meanwhile, my name stayed out of it. I was just the quiet neighbor who documented everything, the one who refused to be bullied. The best part? The utility company installed a new meter with enhanced monitoring and credited my overcharges back. I even got a call from a board member apologizing for not believing me sooner. For the first time in months, I turned on my porch light and smiled. My power, my peace finally restored. A few months later, Karen moved out quietly, her house sitting dark and empty. The new HOA board promised transparency and accountability, and the neighborhood finally went back to normal, this time the kind of peace I'd earned. When people asked how I managed to stay calm, I always said the same thing: revenge isn't about explosions. It's about exposure. You don't have to break anything to make someone face what they've done. Sometimes you just have to let the truth run its current. Layla's story won a local award for investigative reporting. Tom got his utility credits refunded too. And me? I installed solar panels legally and finally saw my bills drop lower than ever. Sometimes I'd look out at the spot where her cable used to be and chuckle. Karen had spent months stealing power, pretending to be green. In the end, her greed burned her brighter than any surge ever could. So if you ever find yourself dealing with a neighbor like that, remember, document, stay patient, and let justice do the frying. Because when you expose corruption to the light, Well, the truth has a way of conducting its own electricity.